In today's action-packed and exciting version of the Fastcast, we're going to be looking at the NASA Submission Portal, or their Electronic Handbook. Sorry. But the NASA Submission Portal is actually pretty easy to navigate, except for some very small quirks, which we're going to go over. But it does put everything that you need right at your fingertips. So obviously the first question is, well, how do I get there? Well, you can easily search for NASA SBIR, and hopefully it's the first result, as long as it says sbir.nasa.gov. Open that page, and here at the top you'll see Handbooks and Proposal Submission EHB. And boom goes the dynamite. So once you're in the system, you'll actually want to go ahead and log in. So anybody that viewed our DoD's new submission portal website video will notice something seems oddly strange here, and that the NASA submission portal looks a lot like the DoD one. Well, there's a reason behind that. The DoD did, as mentioned in that video, largely copy a lot of the NASA functionality. So when we're talking here about the NASA EHB, few kind of key things to know. First is this screen here in blue actually drives kind of a lot of what you need to know at a glance. You'll see that the bar here is filling up slowly into green as you will move through different portions of your proposal package. Your firm registration information is one of the very first things that you'll do. And it's counted as 20%. It's not 20% of the work, but because it just does have 5 modules. Before you can submit your proposal, this bar has to be fully green and this has to sit at 100% completed. And the only way that that's going to get there is if each one of these sub-items is fully circled in green and at 100%. People may go, well, in MFAST, of course, that seems obvious. But you will notice as we work through some of these screens, that's not always the case. So to get us started here, first you're going to click on Start New Proposal. Now, before you actually start a proposal, you're going to want to know what your focus area is. These are listed out in the solicitation that NASA publishes, and it really does go into, what is the point of it? What are they looking for a solution, for that addresses that problem? What are some of the objectives and the scope of work that they want you to do in that phase 1, or subsequently, hopefully phase 2. But you have to at least know that focus area. So let's just pick a random one here. Today I'm working on autonomous systems for space exploration. And my subtopic here, I have, I guess I'm doing a deep neural net. So first you want to start off with a proposal title. So you want your proposal title to actually be unique. Don't just copy the subtopic. Don't call your proposal title here, or in my case, my proposal title should definitely not be Deep Neural Net and Neuromorphic Processes for In-Space Autonomy and Cognition, because that tells the reviewer nothing. They want to know before they even pick that up, okay, what are they looking at? What is salient about it? What's the most important thing? So make sure your proposal title is descriptive, but don't make it a novel. Just be very succinct, be very to the point, but be descriptive about what you're working on. And then you're going to click Save. Now you'll notice that I have something different here now. And this is my proposal screen. This is my navigation board. One quick thing before we jump into the rest of it here that we should cover is you see Mr. Little Astronaut down here in the bottom right. It says, I can help. And this can actually help you out quite a bit. So if you click on them, you'll see that they have this pop-up here that talks about assistance, gives you a way to directly contact the program support. I believe it's actually REI that is running this portal for NASA. But off on the right here, you'll notice some icons. So if you hover over some of these, you have things like help videos, a guide me, live chat, FAQs, templates, a bunch of different things. And if you click on them, they will actually take you to different things like a registration, submission homepage, proposal endorsements. All of these videos, a lot of this information I'm telling you here are here in these help videos, are for templates. If you want a template for your firm certifications, well, they have a template and instructions. If you want one for your contact information, for a research agreement, for an STTR proposal, NASA has a lot of templates that actually exist within their system here. So if you're getting stuck, if you're having something that you can't figure out, not only is this video a good thing to do, not only can of course, as always, contact NNFast and ask, hey, I can't figure this out, can you give me some assistance? You can also look at your little astronaut here, but we're going to leave the firm information for last here. So I'm going to go into contact information, and in contact information, here's where you're actually going to assign the people that are going to be part of this. The big ones that you have to have are your authorized contract negotiator, so the person that can actually sign for the business and can essentially enter the business into an agreement. The principal investigator, so essentially the project manager, the big cheese behind the research idea a lot of times. And most of the time your business official is actually going to be the same as your authorized contract negotiator. But we're going to add, oh look, me as a contract negotiator, as well as I'm also the PI. And let's go ahead and say that I am the business official too. Now, I've actually heard from a lot of people in the past that worry about, well, does it look weird if I'm all three? And it actually doesn't. Most of these agencies know that, particularly for a startup or a small enterprise, the same person is going to be all three roles, just because they deal with things like sole proprietors. Well, in a sole proprietor, it's just that, sole, one, only the lonely there. So that's going to be the one person that is actually doing all the work. So it's totally fine. Now, what you'll notice here is you have a couple buttons here at the bottom. The course back is self-explanatory, it takes you back. Save and continue will save this information and continue on with the proposal. And then you have submit. Now, a lot of times people will go, well, I don't want to try and submit this. I just have this first page filled out. Here's one of the biggest quirks about the NASA Electronic Handbook. Submit does not actually mean submit. On these individual pages, what you see for the button submit means that you are submitting that the information on that page is accurate and complete to the best of your knowledge. The way you submit your entire proposal is you actually endorse it. So anybody that was paying attention at that previous screen saw that I had the blue dashboard, and then on the right there was a section that said proposal endorsement. Endorsing the proposal is the way that you actually submit it. So the submit button here just means that you are submitting that the information is correct. So what you'll want to do is submit. Now you'll see that that jumped from 19% to 20% because that one is 100% complete. Let's look at something here real fast. So I'm going to run through something here for proposal certifications because this is another form. Okay, so now that I'm back with you, let's actually do something here. So you'll see that I've completely filled this out, and I'm going to go ahead and click on Save and Continue. So now this takes me to the next section, Proposal Summary. So I can continue working on it, and I don't ever have to worry about proposal certifications again, is what most people would think. But because I didn't click Submit on that previous screen, you'll notice that proposal certification says 99%. And it is at 99% because that last 1% is literally clicking Submit. So if I go back to proposal certifications, don't have to change any of the information, and click submit, well, now it's at 100%. So this is one of the biggest things that you have to know about this particular submission portal. You have to kind of know what are the things that are going to keep you from submitting. And I've worked with a lot of people over the years that have run into that issue. They just couldn't figure out, everything's sitting at 99%. I don't get it. Well, and it is because of that, because there's some form in there that is either missing a checkbox or you didn't click submit on every single page. I'm not going to bore you with this entire proposal submission process because most of this information is really just kind of basic for people. So we're just going to go through a couple of the big highlights here. So in your proposal summary, one of the very first things you see here is figuring out your technology readiness level. If you don't know what the TRL definitions are here, you can actually click on this question mark in black and get them so that you can actually figure out. So I'm going to end at a TRL 7, but I'm going to begin at a TRL 2, or whatever it happens to be. So you'll notice that once you've actually collapsed the circles on top of each other, you can't click and drag it left anymore. Well, that's because the end is sitting there. So you have to click, drag it back out to the right to get the end. And let's say that you are beginning at a TRL 1. Now you can drag the beginning bubble to the left. So again, just some kind of key things to notice or take a note of. And then again, of course, you have to put in your duration. On a phase 1, your maximum period of performance is 6 months. Your technical abstract, remember, be brief in here, be to the point. Don't overload it with a bunch of jargon, but cover what's really important. What do people have to know? Why is it unique? So one big thing to notice here, particularly when you're using the budget form, is automatically it has the 4 big cost drivers up there: the profit, the G&A, overhead, and direct labor. Because typically those are all going to be a required component. No matter who you are, no matter what you're doing, you're going to have those 4. And if you look over on the side here, you know you have your individual profit, or excuse me, direct labor, overhead, G&A, profit, and then a review. But let's say that you actually do have a subcontract and you go, well, how do I fill that out? When you click on the box and click Save, now you'll notice that you have an entry for subcontractors over here on the left. But let's say that the subcontractor just doesn't come through and you go, oh man, I got to remove this. I can't figure out how to get it off of here though. All you do is uncheck the box, click Save again, and now, voila, like David Copperfield, it's disappeared on you. But going through a couple things here, like on the direct labor, automatically the form populates with who you set as the principal investigator in that contact information. So the next question here is about your fringe rate, and typically fringe rate is one of your indirect cost drivers. A lot of times fringe rate is considered to be those costs that keep your employees happy and keep them there. And so what does that mean? Well, it's things like health insurance, it's things like payroll taxes, it's things like vacation time that you have to actually account for. So if you have a fringe rate, you're going to click yes on this box, and it's going to actually ask you for the fringe rate as you put it in, their employee hours and the employee rate. If you don't have one though, it simply just cuts that off. So when you put in information here, you'll notice that it will automatically calculate out 6. So now I know that if there's 800 hours that I'm working on the proposal at $52.46 an hour, I don't know what that is annually, then the direct labor cost for this person is going to be $41,968. Now if I had a fringe rate of, let's say, 23%, because that's definitely understandable, you'll see that it calculated it out and it actually added it. So if I click save here, it's actually saved that information. One other big thing here that will a lot of times trip people up is the profit rate and cost sharing. Typically you won't actually have cost sharing. If you have zero cost sharing, you actually just enter the zero. If you are doing cost sharing for some reason, let's say that you're cost sharing out $25,000. You notice that once let me actually cut this back to zero for a second. You notice that when I do that, my budget is reduced down to $60,000 because I'm doing a cost share of $25,000. The other big thing that we hear a lot of questions on is your profit rate. So you can actually have a maximum profit rate of 7%. So a lot of times people ask, well, that's the maximum, what profit rate should I go for? You should always, always, always go for 7%. Always capture the maximum profit that you can on these. Because what happens with these is your profit rate is kind of like your overflow pot. Let's say that you have something that you didn't budget for accurately under that cost driver, but you need to spend some money. Well, that's where your profit comes in. Your profit can actually be spent on unallowable cost that normally can't be line itemed in a federal budget. So one of the unallowable costs for any type of SBIR proposal that can't be paid under SBIR funds is things like publications, patents, etc. So if you have an idea and you want to patent it, you can use that 7% profit to actually pay for that. They don't care what that 7% profit is used for. It's essentially your way to continue to do business and to continue to function, because they know a lot of times SBIR funds are not enough to get someone there. A lot of times it's actually just the start to the work. So that 7% really does help out. So if I save this, now you'll see that I have $6,000, $6,007.06 for profit, and that got added to my total. If I go back and adjust anything, like say overhead here, which I have a $25,000 just flat rate for overhead. Let's say that it's actually not 25 and it's 35. So when I save that, you'll see that my budget went up to $103,806.17. Now if I go back to profit, you'll notice that this has actually jumped too. Now it's $6,791.06. So your profit is actually driven by the total of everything else, because your profit is added on top of everything else. That's one big thing to kind of keep aware of, is if you are going to get a profit, make sure that when you're doing your calculations and you're trying to figure out your budget, that before you add the profit on, you're not already at the 125, because your profit does count on top of everything else, but it still has to be within the threshold. So now I have all my cost drivers in there. I have a budget. Never have a budget like this. You always want to try and gain as much as you can, but just for purposes of today, we're setting that as the budget. But you'll notice that even though I have everything filled out and all the requirements, I'm still at 99%. Well, that's because you have to review it. You have to look at all of these different factors and make sure that they're okay, and click submit. And a lot of times it'll take that a couple seconds to get up to 100, and there we go. So one really quick thing to note here is, if you are working with a subcontractor or a consultant, there's a couple things that you need to know. So, and excuse the gibberish text in here just because I needed something in here. You should have a letter of commitment from any sort of subcontractor or consultant, and it should be a letter that essentially says, we agree to do this work, we agree to this, level of funding, this is the amount we've agreed to, and it needs to be signed by someone that has the authority to sign that contract. Well, not contract, that document. So with your letter of commitment, you're going to want to actually upload it. That's going to be a big thing that people are going to look for. The next question here asks about the G&A rate. So the G&A rate, a lot of times people will say, well, the firm that I'm subcontracting, that I'm subbing with, actually already has their own G&A rate. And that's true, most of them do. But the G&A rate here is essentially for you to be able to manage the subcontract. A lot of times people will put their own G&A rate on top because they are doing some work on the management of the subcontract, on making sure that that team is together, making sure that all the forms are filled out right, making sure that they're dispersing payments as they need to. There has to be some time and effort given towards that. So a lot of times, yes, you should go ahead and do your G&A rate on top of that cost for that subcontractor. And you should probably also have a full budget statement from them. Now, if you don't have one and you just have a number, that's fine, but then the budget authority for NASA will have to contact that budgetary contact and get a full accounting of the breakdown of costs there. So a lot of times it's better just to ask your subs to provide a full detailed budget so that you can put it in here. Another really quick thing to note is that when you're working on the budget, so say that you added that item like subcontracts and you put it in, you saved everything, you were at 100%, and then again the subcontract didn't come together, or your travel didn't come together and you're going to have to remove it. So once you remove it, you'll see that even though you removed it, you saved, you continued, it's at 99% again. That's because you have to submit on any changes that take place. So because I did add that subcontract, removed it, and saved it, it's still sitting at 99%. So now I have to go back and click submit again to get it to the 100%. So the technical proposal is really kind of basic. It's just a spot to drop your technical proposal there. So we want to actually go through it. Just do try to make your technical proposal one PDF package rather than a couple of them. It just makes it messy and confusing on the back end when you're uploading 19 different ones because each page is its own PDF. Don't do that. But one thing that we're going to cover here real fast is the briefing chart. So the briefing chart is kind of that one-page chart that really lays out what you're working on, who cares, why do they care, and any functional like diagrams, photographs, whatever of the technology. So you're not going to like create the briefing chart into in a PowerPoint and then upload it. You're actually going to put in all the information into here, and then the NASA system is going to generate the briefing chart. It's going to pull in the NASA applications and the non-NASA commercial applications from that cover page that you filled out, which is why you see mine here is gibberish because I just typed that in, and then the contact person, whether it's the business official, principal investigator, or somebody else. So I filled out my proposal forms. I have my technical proposal up there, filled out my budget, got it complete, put in my briefing chart. Now you say, well, you should be ready to endorse. So when you click on endorse, it's still sitting at 0% though, even though everything here is 100%. And that's because I have to go back and actually edit my firm forms. Now you don't have to do this after the proposal. You can actually do this first. Totally up to you. So the firm registration information just asks you some basic questions about your firm, like your DUNS number, your ZIP +4, etc. It actually puts your EIN on this page, so I cannot open that. But things like your firm certifications. Your firm certifications, you're actually really just going through here and saying that, yes, you certify that you are able to submit for an SBIR or STTR. So things like, you follow the correct management and ownership structure, that all the research work will be performed in the US. You're going to go through and fill out a bunch of questions like that. So one of the things that you're going to need at the very bottom of this here is your SBC Control ID number, as well as your registration confirmation. So for anyone that has forgotten what their SBC Control ID is, because a lot of people do, you never really need that, it's the one off of SBIR.gov. So you have to have that Control ID number as well as that page that essentially you print out that says, hey, here's proof of your registration. When filling out your SBC Control ID, when you copy that number over, make sure it's just everything after the SBC underscore. So the digits that come up are all you're going to want to enter here. So the commercial metrics survey is a little bit different this year. Apparently you have to submit a commercial metrics survey no matter if you have actually ever gotten an award or not. Because clicking no and submitting that comes up with this error and says at least one has to be submitted. So a couple things just to note here. When you do this survey, it's going to ask you a bunch of questions about your firm certifications, just your awards. If you've never had an award, put 0. You are going to have some sort of financial information in there though. So with these company financials, you'll see that it's asking you for something like a balance sheet, a P&L statement, and cash statement. Information for the last 2 to 3 years is preferred. If you're brand new, just a pro forma cash flow statement will work. So you have to have something that actually goes in here. So all of our firm certifications are done now. So what we can do is we can go back to our home and we see that, okay, my firm certifications are at 100%. My proposal is 100%. Now I'm actually ready to endorse. So this is the way you actually submit your proposal to NASA. When you click endorse, it's going to ask you a couple questions. I don't remember how many questions, and the endorsement just as a process that happens. So I don't want to click it and accidentally submit a proposal full of garbage to NASA. But this is the way that you finish off and that you make sure your proposal gets into the right people that it needs to get into. So over the course of the video here, we've gone through quite a few different items and things that may be confusing to people. As always, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out to MinimFast. We are here, we provide answers, we provide feedback. We provide kind of that grounding. Am I working on this in the right way? Is this the right base? We are that kind of buttress for when you go, oh God, I'm freaking out. I can't figure this out. I need some help. We are that help. We do provide that service. So feel free to contact us. And otherwise, happy hunting.